transition is with us, and it's here to stay. Global economics, technological changes at the speed of light, and social values that are changing faster than any time in the past. To help guide you along your journey in this fast-changing life, the show with a purpose: to empower, to enlighten, to educate, and to entertain. The show that offers you a friend, a guide in the most transitional time in the history of the human race. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's your host, Steve Beaman.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to this brand new edition of the Steve Beaman Show. I am Steve Beaman, your host, here with my very lovely, talented, and fun Carol Parisi, as we once again walk on a journey with you to a better life. As always, we put together a fabulous tea show. I shouldn't say always, it's our first tea show, but we put together a great show that happens to be the T word. And so it's going to be a terrific time today, isn't it?
Oh, wow. A terrific time today. Triple T, triple threat. Ooh.
It is a triple threat.
It's going to be outstanding. So where is our journey going to take us today,
Oh,
Steve?
goodness gracious. We have so much. We're going to start off right off talking about the G20 meetings that took place a couple of weeks ago in Beijing, because that's kind of relevant.
What?
Yeah. And then we're going to put on our spiritual path again. And we're going to do our third and final episode in the spiritual path as we try to open people up to new ideas and new thoughts, all that lead them to what is ultimately the truth.
Okay, so our journey's going from to master your world
to master your mind, down into master your word on the T word, which will enlighten us and surprise us, whatever word you've chosen.
It'll be a timeless truth, I guarantee it.
Folks, this is like when we did the R word. They're just going to be flying.
Yes, yes.
But then we'll come up on the backside of the hour with the Master Your Money segment. We're talking about Target date funds. Thank you. My T word slipped my mind.
Well, I remembered because it's like Target shopping.
That's exactly right. And sometimes it's less profitable than that. So anyway, let's get going right off as we talk about the G20 meeting. In the Master Your World, our goal is to give you the information you need without the spin that you get from the spin doctors.
Okay, here's the deal. G20, I've got my tinfoil hat on, seriously. That's all those big globalists, and they're going to make all their plans to take over the little people.
Yeah, well, there's a little difference on this. The G20 is actually the 20 largest economies, and it was started in 1999, their first meeting held in 2005, and the idea is that the countries can come together and talk about monetary policy, fiscal policy, global issues like the environment, where the U.S. is really good about environmental laws, China's not so good. Where we're really good about criminal behavior, the Philippines, they kind of kill people for dealing drugs, even without a court date. So there are a lot of these issues that get brought up. And yes, we did go, and everybody's probably heard that our president was snubbed a little bit with the Chinese refusing to bring up an actual staircase to Air Force One. They made him go down the back elevator. The Chinese say it wasn't intentional, that their elevator, their stairways broke.
The Chinese don't do anything that's not intentional. They're
these
very
things are planned
people.
years in advance. There is nothing that happens by chance. So I think it was a statement from the Chinese that, hey, we're the new kid on the block. You better treat us with respect.
Well, you know what? You were saying something in our conference before coming on today, and it's monetary policy.
It's important. It's relevant.
You were talking about you made this little thing for me. There you go, a little chart. 18 trillion, 19 trillion, 900 billion, 136 billion, 3.6 trillion. What do all those numbers mean again?
Okay, this is important. So put on not your tinfoil hats, but put on your logical hats.
Get a piece of if you can, get a piece of paper and pencil.
And really think about this, because this will affect you. What these numbers were, the United States today is the second largest economy in the world. China's bigger. They're at about 19 trillion. We're at 18 trillion.
And what does that mean, the largest economy? What they spend or what they put into
their
government?
Total economy, all in, their total economy is about $19 trillion.
Give me five things that's a part of their total
Manufacturing
economy.
input, consumer spending, financial services, government spending, all of it.
Okay.
So they're bigger than we are. Now, they've got a lot more people, so it's not really a surprise.
Percentage-wise,
But here's where it gets kind of disconcerting. The United States has $19 trillion of debt, so about 110% of our total GDP. The Chinese have $900 billion in debt.
Wait a minute. Okay.
So think about that.
USA has $19 trillion in debt. 19 trillion in debt, and our total economy is 18 trillion. So
Right.
we're spending more than we're bringing in as a total economy, which is a problem. Try and
It's
do
not
that
as
at
big
home.
as people think, but yes, it's a
Okay, no,
problem.
you don't do that at home, ladies and
Well,
gentlemen.
yes, you do, and let me tell you why. Let's take the tinfoil hat and break it up. When you compare the debt of the United States to its income, that would be like saying your house costs more than your annual income. Most Americans' homes cost more than their annual income.
Well,
Compare
that's-
debt to assets, not to income. The U.S. has the most assets in the world, too. We've got something like 180 trillion in assets. So,
Okay.
So anyway, the
Okay,
point
so
being,
19 trillion to 900 billion with a B is
Right.
their debt.
Right.
Okay, now this next big one is this is
This
sca-
is the
you
stuff-
can't run your home like this. I'm
no,
sorry.
this is where I get a little bit concerned. All of us have a savings account. In America, the average American has like $65,000 saved up in cash.
They have that much?
Yeah, but that's in 401ks and everything else. The American government has a savings account too.
Yay.
It's the balance of the United States thing. $136
Treasury?
billion dollars.
136 billion with a
Gold,
B.
foreign exchange things, and all that. The Chinese have 3.6 trillion in savings. That's disconcerting.
Okay, and we owe them money. Can
We
we
owe them
default?
about $1 trillion.
Can we default and then we get them down to 2 trillion?
We're not even close to defaulting.
No.
We're not even close. And
I
again,
thought
that's-
everything. Well, that this G20.
Well, let
what
me-
were they talking about at the
Okay,
G20?
the
What does
G20,
it matter
the
to me as
the
a
biggest
consumer
things
and
that
American?
you just hit the nail on the head, Carol.
Ding.
What does it even matter?
What does it matter?
We watch our news programs and we get inflamed about all this global stuff, but who cares? Okay, here's what they talked about. They talked about climate change. Now, here's the problem.
Anthropomorphic climate change, or people dumping toxic waste into
Let's talk
clean.
English to people. Nobody can say anthropomorphic like you can. So, man-made climate change.
Okay, all
Okay. Here's the problem. The U.S. has been really good since the 70s of cleaning up our air. I'm old enough to remember acid rain and the bad things coming out of the sulfur that we were pumping into the air. We've cleaned it all up. The Chinese haven't. So the Chinese are pumping huge amounts of every possible pollutant you can think of into the air.
And they're a pretty big landmass too, so they're pumping it at a greater amount
They're
of
pumping
landmass.
out, and so is India. So are all the developing economies. So there's a lot of talk about how do we get them on a path to going green, so to speak.
Well, greener. Okay,
Green,
I'm
I buy greener. I'm not a. You talk about tinfoil hats. I'm not an environmentalist.
You're not a tree
right?
hugger.
No,
I love
but
trees.
like
I
trees.
saw a hummingbird today. Right, you like trees
I
because
like
they
trees.
put out the carbon
And
dioxide or
absent any other
oxygen.
effect, I
and-
want trees. But when you talk about we can't put coal into power plants because it might hurt the environment. We're going to put people out of work. I tend to say give those people jobs. But anyway, so this whole G20 is all these people coming together.
Yes.
And they talk about monetary issues. For example, the Chinese manipulate their currency. They keep it artificially down so that their goods are cheaper to export into other countries, and our goods are more expensive to import into their
So
country.
you mean when I buy that $1.10 little trinket on eBay, I'm supporting the Chinese economy and I'm potentially hurting the American economy?
Well, if you
I'm
can
trying
buy
to
it
drill
in
it down
America,
to-
if you can buy it in them, I mean,
I'm
most,
buying it
most
at
products
overseas.
are made overseas right now
Yeah.
because labor is so much cheaper.
Cheap.
However, and this is something people should be relevant when it comes to politics. And I'm sorry to drill down, but we're in a political year. There are politicians out there saying they're going to bring jobs back to America.
Yes, they
I
should.
would like to suggest to you that ain't going to happen.
Oh, come on.
Let me explain what will
we
happen.
got 2 minutes.
They're going to bring manufacturing back because they're going to cut regulation and cut taxes and make it conceivable for a company to actually survive in the United States.
Okay.
That's a good thing.
But-
those companies are needing fewer and fewer people to run those machines. We are
That's the
increasingly
technology.
automated, and this goes back to where you're talking about rubber meets the road.
Yep.
Everybody listening to this program needs to get in their head. The world is changing. It's changing fast on every dimension. Technology is replacing every single manual labor job there is, including surgery. An appendectomy
Somebody's
can
got
be
to
done.
run that machine, though. Somebody needs
Absolutely
the
not.
knowledge. Oh, no.
Once it's built, a robot does what it does, and they use lasers. They get more accurate positioning than a human can do. They're more there's a lot of advantages to laser surgery. Look at LASIK. That's done by
But
a
doesn't
laser.
somebody run the equipment?
But it's a technician, not a surgeon.
so it's going to have a
We're
lower.
changing the nature of jobs. We're changing the nature of how we live, and it's why you need to listen to the Steve Beaman Show.
So
So we want to guide you on how to thrive and prosper in this.
So not right now, but are we going to talk about the dollar crashing?
Well, we can talk about that, Master Your Money, because there is on September 30th this thing you're all going to hear about the world currency coming out and how it's going to cause the dollar to collapse. I'm not going to make a bet on it, but there are people with tinfoil hats like you that very well might.
When I talk to Steve, I'm like, I'm the tinfoil hat here. I believe in
Carol's
conspiracy.
like, Steve, how do I make money? Because I think it's going to happen.
I believe in conspiracy theories.
So we have a lot going on. I'll tell you in our next segment, we do the 5 paths for you guys because they're so important, and we're still in the spiritual path. We're on our 3rd issue of the spiritual path, and Carol and I have labored to make that one beneficial, not politically correct, but not offensive, and try to walk that fine razor line.
Oh, our spiritual path is deep. We go very deep in this.
We go deep, and we're going to go deeper today with looking at how to have a spiritually open mind in the right sort of way.
So let's just tie up the G20. Whatever they do isn't really going to affect my micro life at all.
Not today. And all they did is they agreed to keep interest rates low, and that's keeping the stock market up. So if you got a 401k, you're happy and you're making money.
Woohoo!
Woohoo. So the stock market stays high, and so do we here on the Steve Beaman Show.
Hi friends, Carol Parisi here. If you're like me, you're always on the quest for improved sleep and more energy. I discovered the secret to getting this. It's tart cherries and their restorative powers. It's been found that tart cherry juice, like the Cherry Bundy brand, could help to relieve aches and pains, provide faster muscle recovery, and help you get a good night's sleep. The science shows that tart cherries and Cherry Bundy are rich in antioxidants that help reduce inflammation in the body. These antioxidants also work to reduce exercise-induced oxidative stress to help your body recover faster. Tart cherries also contain naturally occurring melatonin, known as a key ingredient to a good night's rest. To learn more about the science behind tart cherry juice, check out choosecherries.com. It's full of data from independent research studies. My favorite tart cherry juice brand is Cherry Bundy, which you could find at cherrybundy.com, spelled CHERIBUNDI.com. And tell them Steve and Carol sent you.
It is good to be alive, and I was talking to Carol in the break. I think we need to clarify. When we say we're high on life.
High-spirited people.
Very high-spirited. Yes. As we now enter this very deep part of the show on mastering your mind, and here we talk about the 5 paths to a transformed life. We've talked about the intellectual path. We've talked about the physical path. We're talking now about the spiritual path. Next time we're together, we're going to join and talk about the emotional path. We may or may not talk about the financial path here in this segment because we already do the Master Your Money. But we're going to try to wrap all this together in the final of the 26 series. We're going to wrap it all together and talk about why it's so important.
Well, Steve, okay, we're on the spiritual path. And the spiritual path is a path of the heart.
And the mind.
Well, and the mind. But this week we have a T word. What is our T word for our spiritual path?
Teachable spirits.
Teachable spirit.
And what we're talking about here is the ability, and this is something that, again, if you're listening, think deep on this. We know that spiritual issues are complicated. There's some really elegant simplicity, but as you go deeper, it's complicated.
I'm going to say a scripture. Okay, we're on the spiritual path. It's the Old Testament. It's the book of Proverbs 9:9. And I'm paraphrasing. I'm not reading from the word right now. But what it says is a wise man gets wiser when he seeks wisdom.
Absolutely, and it's the only thing we can look for. I think one of the tragedies in life people get is when they close down on the spiritual path, and either I already know it, which it's like golf. You can never get as good as you'll be. You can always learn more. Or if they think, well, I don't know, I just don't go down that path. I would love to have those folks write us and call us and open up a dialogue about why maybe there are things we should look at.
Well, the spiritual path is a foundation, and it's like you said, it's got that symbiotic relationship for all the other paths. And here's the thing. You need to have your mind open and your heart open.
Both
and
sides.
I find as we get older, we get more stiff and rigid in our thinking. And I don't know if that serves us. And spiritually, think about it. The more your heart and your mind are open to things, maybe more new things are going to come into your spirit where you'll be able to serve others better.
One thing Jesus said is that it's suffer the little children to come unto me, because it's like these that will come into the kingdom of heaven.
we're supposed to be like little kids, always curious.
Always curious.
And wonder.
And as we get older in this world that creates such cynicism and such rigidness, we do forget what it's like to be a child looking at the miraculousness of nature, the miracles of life, the opportunities that abound. We tend to go, oh, I'm where I am. I'm in my life. I can't do much about it. And that is not where this path ought to lead you. This path should lead you to a little happiness, a little joy, a little contentment, and a lot of questions.
Well, now open-mindedness, okay, a teachable spirit. What does that mean? Unpack that a little bit. And what does that mean? I truly believe you could learn from anything, even things that are hard and quote unquote bad things.
Well, the fact of the matter is knowledge is never bad. It's what you do with knowledge that's bad. The more you learn about Scripture, the more you learn about life, the more you learn about all these things that relate to us and to the world around us, the better off you are. It's the idea of lifelong learning. I mean, go to the intellectual path real quick, because never, ever, ever stop. And it's part of being fulfilled. Now, again, you and I, Carol, have talked about on this show openly that we come from a Christian idea.
Absolutely.
I believe that Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior, and I believe he came to redeem us from our own sin. But that doesn't, by saying it, disrespect those who think differently.
You know, if you unpack a lot of the world, quote unquote, religions, and this is not a religious show, this is not a religious conversation, it's a spiritual conversation. So you go to these world spiritual, they do believe in a higher power, something that's greater than them that they could tap into to get that knowledge and that strength for the journey, if you will.
Most people on the planet agree there is a God. By whatever term you want to use it, they think
I've heard there's a God-shaped hole in all of us.
Exactly,
but,
and I believe that. Now, the discussion then comes around this issue for the Christian of whether Jesus was who he said he was. And again,
that's faith. That goes to our faith and our beliefs.
And again, an open mind accepts that a lot of what we believe is faith. I mean, I've never met George Washington, but I believe he existed. It's partly faith. It's faith in the history books. There's a lot of faith, but faith in and of itself isn't bad. But we have to go down and be open-minded to realizing that maybe we don't know everything we think we know either. We've talked last week about science and the spiritual path, and we're talking about string theory.
Yep.
And this idea that maybe there was no Big Bang, maybe two universes crossed. Well, by unlimiting God, by not putting him into a human box, it's mind-blowing on how big it can be. I mean, it's not...
I'm going to say something, because we had this discussion, and maybe this is something we should do off the air, but we were talking about God and how we look at him from our human...
Real quick, I have to stop you there, because there's nothing you and I say off the air that we don't say on the air. So we might as well have the discussion in front of our friends.
But thinking about our conversation last week where I said God laughs and you said it would be a big explosion, you know, does God have emotions? And you know what? Next week we're going down the emotional path anyway, right? So maybe, but it says we could grieve the Holy Spirit. So wouldn't that be an emotional thing?
I would not deny that God has emotion. I would deny that his emotion is like ours.
And of course. Okay,
that's like saying, does God have an intelligence? Well, yeah, it's just
infinite. Infinite intelligence.
Much bigger than mine.
Yes, absolutely. But guess what? If we believe in this God, this higher power, we could tap into that infinite intelligence, and we could get direction for when our emotions are broken, and have that emotional, loving God give us guidance.
I believe in that. As you folks listen here on the Steve Beaman Show with myself and Carol Parisi, we do talk about this because it's part of the 5 paths. If you want to live a fulfilled life, you're going to be in balance on your physical, emotional, intellectual, financial, and spiritual paths, and you have to be at comfort with where you are spiritually.
Well, and you know, this week's topic is that teachable heart. And you know, as you journey down these 5 paths, the emotional path and the physical path and the intellectual path and the spiritual path as well as the financial path, think about if you take that teachable heart and apply that to all of these 5 paths.
Absolutely. It's why they all interrelate. Carol, you're dead on. You're dead on.
Wouldn't that just be, I mean, living and creating that ideal life for yourself?
We talked about, at some point, talking about Maslow's hierarchy and the self-actualized life. And I'm telling you, part of getting to that point of a self-actualized life, when you, even through struggles, you wake up and go, I like who I am. I like where I am in time and space. I like this life. To get there, you've got to find balance on these 5 paths. Because when you have challenges then, and believe me, I've had my share, I'm looking at it going, I can process through those challenges because I have these other things to help me.
But what if you don't? I'm going to say something. Back in the day, after my mom died when I was 17, I was taking some crazy paths of rebellion, if you would. And I didn't know, I didn't intrinsically know, you know what, all I wanted to do was live for today. I mean, you know what, life is short. My mom died at 44.
Okay,
This
so
stinks.
let me do my quick mental conversion for you.
Okay.
First of all, living for today isn't a bad thing. I think it was scripture that taught us to live for today and quit worrying about tomorrow so much. So there are times in life when it's okay for you to think for today. You go through a massive transition in your life. And people listening to us right now have people that are sick and dying. They've been through divorce. They've had problems with their kids. There's a time when you need to be there day in and day out.
You need to be in the present. I get that. I so get that. But when you're just living for the moment and not planning your life and not understanding any of the gifts and talents that you have that could make your life better and start goal setting and dreams.
Then where this leads is sometimes you need a mentor, a coach, a friend. And this show can be your mentor, your coach, your friend. Write Carol at stevebeaman.com if you want more about that, by the way. We've got some really exciting stuff going on there with the project we talked about today.
Oh, it's going to be awesome.
And you can tell them it relates to your license plate.
To create your ideal life. We have solutions to help you do that if you are interested. And please write us. If you have issues in any part of your life, either Steve or myself, or we have
we'll find
experts.
Somebody to help.
We have experts. Our resources are vast. And, you know, here's one other thing too, folks, and it's having a teachable heart. But don't listen to what people say when they talk bad to you, because you know what? You are created in the image of an amazing creator, and there's nothing that you can't do.
Criticism is okay if you've done something wrong.
That's accountability. There's a difference.
So don't twist that, is my point.
Some people are just hyper. Oh, look at her shoes.
Right.
Really?
If we can't go through life complimenting people and looking for the good in people, then what good is any of it?
How many times does it take a child? If a child hears something negative, how many positive things do they need to hear just to bring them up to zero?
This is a question, and
It is
I know
a question.
the answer. The answer is 5.
5.
Count them: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times to get back to that.
Like the 5 paths. I can't wait
Like
till
the
our
5
word.
paths. And as we come, we've got the Master Your Word, which will give us a new T word. A funny thing happened over the past years. Responsibility for retirement got shoved onto your back. IRAs, KIOs, 401ks, and all the other alphabet soup of investment options were thrown to you with the happy statement, you're now in charge of your own retirement. The problem is, money doesn't come with an instruction book. Well, here's the instruction book with no biases, no conflicts of interest, a pure purpose to promote and provide financial education. Welcome to the Society to Advance Financial Education, a 501c3 not-for-profit organization created and sustained to help you, real people in the real world. When you need a friend in finance, someone to explain things and make them understandable to you, you need SAFE. We have spoken to hundreds, thousands of people in transition, men and women dealing with retirement, college planning, divorce, death, transitions of all kinds, and we're there to help. Visit safefinancial.org on the web and become a member. Let our educational tools help you. Hello, everyone, as we now get together here on the Steve Beaman Show with my great co-host, Carol Parisi. This is the T-Word week, and every week, as you know, Carol brings us a special word, and we've been doing this since A. So we've been through attitude, belief. I could go through them because we've got a whole bunch of books about them. But anyway, we're down on the T-word. So, Carol, what is this word that we bring our listeners this week?
Well, it could be tenacity or being tenacious.
Wow.
And if that's not a big, major key in success principles, which last week was success, but tenacity is, we're gonna, let's talk about what it is, and then let's talk about a couple stories of people
Carol's
that are
got
tenacious.
some great stories, but it's true. And I tell you, I've been in small business my whole life. I've started companies, I've failed in companies, I've succeeded in all of the whole bit. tenacity is that thing that differentiates. It's that marathon runner who says, I'm not quitting. I'm hitting the wall at 21 miles, but I'm going to keep going because it's the right thing to do.
It is the best stories of the human spirit are because of tenacity.
Yeah.
People that just don't give up. And how about Thomas Alva Edison?
We've all heard that. But you know what's interesting?
How many times did he try to create that incandescent light bulb?
I want to play a little devil's advocate for everybody, because somebody out there is thinking what I'm thinking right now is, what about the phrase that doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is insanity?
Okay, but he kept tweaking. He found 999,000 ways, or 9,999 ways not
Thomas
to create a light bulb.
And the point being, he didn't do it exactly the same.
He never did it. He tweaked it, and that's kind of, that's cool.
By the way, there's another point there. If you're doing a business right now, or you're in your family and you're kind of in that, what do I do different? How do I make it work better? And you'd like some ideas, write Carol or me. It's Carol@SteveBeaman.com or Steve@SteveBeaman.com. And we'll work with you to come up with some fresh ideas on how maybe you can find the next light bulb.
Well, you know what? And here's the deal. You were a direct salesperson, and so was I. And I created an organization from nothing except belief in my product. If you are a network marketer, we can help you and your team with success principles and business principles, and hopefully we'll give you the oomph to be tenacious.
I'm going to jump in because we've got, and we talked last week or a couple weeks ago about a new sponsor we've got called Job Formants.
Oh, yeah.
This is exciting. If you're looking for a job right now, write me at Steve@SteveBeaman.com. We are partnering up with a company that has a terrific program to help you get a job. So I digress.
It's awesome.
To that,
no, and you know what? If you're a small business,
if you need people, call. Yeah,
call us. We got
but
people.
tell us your stories on the tenacious path, because it is a terribly non-tenacious thing not to terrifically travel down that. I'm trying so hard.
It's a timeless truth. Tenacity is, my friend. Okay. I want to talk about a gentleman by the name of James Robertson. James Robertson was a factory worker, $10.50 an hour factory worker from Detroit, Michigan. Okay.
I've been there. It's cold.
It gets cold. It gets nasty. It gets
Cold
hot
and
and humid in the
gray,
summer. I mean, it's horrible, right?
You don't move there for climate.
No, this gentleman, factory worker, $10.50 an hour factory worker, his 1988 Honda broke down on him over 10 years ago. This man has walked to work 21 miles, 11 and a half one way and the other way, round trip 21 miles.
So 11 at 3 miles an hour, it's like a 3.5 hour walk to work.
Yes, so it took him 7 hours a day, a full day of work for most
sure
people.
He's healthy.
Oh, totally healthy. But he has never missed a day. That's how healthy he is. He never missed a day. Now, you want to talk about tenacity and work ethic.
I want to give him a promotion.
Well, somebody did start a GoFundMe page, and they bought him a brand new vehicle, as well as like $350,000.
I think it's funny because how many times we've talked how you feel success. We talked last week about if you don't see all the red lights or green lights, you don't leave your house type thing. You've got to, in life, be tenacious and make it work for you.
Tell me that's not a tenacious work ethic.
And I'll bet you it transforms into his life. I'll bet you he's like that on everything. If he wants something, he goes and gets it.
Isn't that true? How everything translates. I mean, if you are like that way in one way, you're like that way in everything.
It's all of our lives. And if you're that right now, sitting kind of feeling you're in the rut and not in the groove, think about things that you're not tenacious about. What is it you should be doing that you're not doing? And as you do that, you want to think about, don't those guys give me a challenge every week?
Oh, well, not yet, not yet.
No, we're not going to. No, that's later. But that challenge is going to really help put that in perspective.
Well, now let's talk a little bit about tenacity on the 5 paths, Steve. If you're tenacious in your finances, where you little chip away your $100 in your Bitcoin or what's that stuff called?
I've made a lot of money, and you know how I did it? One day at a time.
One day at a time. Be tenacious. Every day, do a little more. What is spiritual? You pray every day. Eventually, prayer just becomes open, more open, and then you start seeing it. The physical path, every day, work out, eat healthy, emotional. Hey, you're okay, and knowledge, you can never get enough of it.
No, Carol, it's a transformation of life, and it's why we call it 5 Paths to a Transformed Life, because it will transform your life.
This and tenacity will, Steve Beaman Show, and tenaciously listening to us every week, and then go back and watch us.
Go up on the site, watch the video, write us. Believe me, the stuff we preach is the stuff we live. And I can tell you, it's transformed my life. I remember waking up as a young man, 19, 20 years old, for the first time hearing the Dennis Whateleys of the world and how it just impacted my life. We are bringing you the tools you need. Let us help. We want to be there for you.
You met Dennis Waitley.
Yeah, I had dinner with Dennis. He's a super guy.
Well, you know, Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, and then that opened the door for Seeds of Greatness. That was my very first tape program, and I tenaciously listened to it.
Well, I'll tell you what, as you're listening to here on the Steve Beaman Show, be tenacious about it. You want to stick around because if you're tenaciously doing a target date fund, you don't want to miss it. We just finished tax time, and I know, like me, many of you are thinking, wow, this gets more complicated every year. I'm Steve Beaman, and my friends at Grebe & Associates have been helping individuals and successful businesses for over 20 years. In construction, they say measure twice and cut once. In accounting, trust me, research and plan before you act. When you need powerful tax and accounting advice for you or for your business, contact Grebe & Associates at 630-653-3510. Visit Grebe & Associates.
Now, back to the Steve Beaman Show for insight on your money and the nation's financial future.
Welcome back to the most tenacious, terrific program out there as we now travel down the financial path, mastering your money. You know, we talked in the first part of the program about the G20, so yes, that's a little perspective on our nation's future, but let's talk about your future.
And your future, this segment is sponsored by your
The Society to Advance Financial Education, a 501c3 organization that's not for profit, but there to be a friend of yours. In fact, we got a really cool thing going on at SAFE this month. In September, I don't know exactly when, but we're going to relaunch a website. We're launching some new newsletters. We're talking about membership value. What we did the numbers earlier. It's like $4,000 in value you get for what was like $9.95 a month, but we're even going to discount that to $4.95 a month.
No.
So it's a huge deal. But
First 100 people.
Yeah, we'll do something like the first 100 people get it for $4.95 a month.
This, ladies and gentlemen, the Beaman Group's path to prosperity, unbelievable.
23 lessons. And, you know, it's just so wonderful that you can see Carol do that on camera because when she reaches over to do that, the
mic.
folks on radio don't hear her. That's why we have such a good time. To be honest with you, folks, if you could watch us do this, we're actually just talking to each other. We don't even really pay attention to the rest. But anyway, I want to go back to this whole idea of the T word in the Master Your Money because if you're in a 401k program, and you don't specifically tell your employer what to do, you are put into what's called a qualified defined investment program.
What?
Right.
Wait, I'm going to write a qualified
defined investment program.
There is so much terminology.
Well, hear me out what this is. This is the government telling the employer that you put these people in this investment and you won't get sued.
The government tells them what to do?
Absolutely. The Department of Labor runs these 401k plans. So the employer who's not allowed to give you advice, you give them money in your 401k, they maybe match it, which you should take the employer match. It's immediate return.
Yeah.
But if you don't tell them what to do, they're going to put you into this qualified plan. Most often, it's called a target date fund.
Okay.
Here's what a target date fund is. It sets the date of your retirement and then backs up from that how old you are and how many years you have to retirement. Because in academic theory, bonds are less risky than stocks. As you get older, nearer your retirement, it shifts your assets from stocks to bonds because bonds are considered to be less risky. So the idea is by the time you're 60, there's an old equation, a guy named John Templeton. Maybe you've heard of John Templeton.
Templeton funds.
Right. He came out with a thing and said for every year of your life, you should be that percent in bonds. So a 5-year-old should be 5% in bonds. A 90-year-old should be 90% in bonds.
Well, that's a real good rule of thumb.
Well, here's the challenge to it, though, and the world changes, and we are in a time of transformation. The Steve Beaman Show was created because of this.
Okay.
The issue with the target date funds is they're based on the academic theories of the efficient market hypothesis. I know, it's a bunch of academic
I'd rather
stuff.
say anthropomorphic climate change.
Okay,
So
let me put it in English.
Yeah, English, please.
Bonds are less risky than stocks.
Okay. You could have said
but is that true? We live in a time of zero interest rates. If interest rates go up, the value of bonds go down.
So what are bonds yielding now?
Depends what you buy, but 1 or 2%.
You know, it makes the mattress list seem like such a...
Well, it's something you ought to think about. If you're in a target date fund and it's forcing you near retirement to go more and more into bonds, you want to be really careful because if we turn interest rates up, the value of your portfolio goes down precipitously.
Our interest rate's going to go up, Steve. I mean, what do you think? And I know you can't, you don't have a crystal ball.
I wish I did.
But logically,
There's no good answer to that.
do you think after the election, I'm sure everybody's not doing anything until this election's over.
All
because
of the global central bankers are thinking the same thing. If they raise rates right now, they squelch this global growth that's at 1 or 2%. There's not enough
How
growth.
could that even be considered growth, 1 or 2%
it's better
growth?
than zero.
Global growth.
The globe's growing at maybe 3 or 4%. It's growing a little faster than the U.S. But so you look at Europe, their central bank's saying we've got to keep interest rates at zero, otherwise our economy is going to collapse. The United States, the folks at Janet Yellen and company, they're not unique. They don't have anything you and I don't have, right? They're looking at the economy saying the GDP is not growing very well. The second quarter we grew at 1%. Employment, we did 150,000 jobs in August.
Yeah, but there's the U3 and the U6 unemployment figures.
These numbers, but they all play out to the same thing. We're not seeing wage pressure. We're not seeing inflationary pressures. They don't want to raise rates because it slows home mortgages down. It slows car sales down. They're in a real conundrum.
So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So let's just keep doing the same thing and kicking can down the road.
Nobody knows how long you can do this. Japan's been in a doldrums for 20 years. We might just have a flat economy for 20 years.
So what do you think it would take to boost the economy?
I think we need three things, and I think we need them now. We need tax cuts. We have the highest corporate tax rates in the developed world. We can't do that. We've got to incentivize companies to come back. I want to see that 35% corporate rate dropped. Secondly, we need personal income tax reductions. We need to give people back their money. Even if you folks are on the progressive side and think government solves problems, I'm sorry, I believe in you. I think you solve problems. The third thing we need is to deregulate. We are regulating small business out of existence in this country with labor laws, environmental laws, building laws. You go down the path.
There's one word, and it's called pragmatism. Pragmatic.
That's a P word.
Well, I know, but it's but it's a practical and pragmatic environmental regulation is a good thing. I don't want dirty water. I don't want dirty air. I love nature.
I was on a radio show recently with one of the very progressive left shows, and they invited me on as an economist. Said, "Hey, what do you think we need to do?" And I told them those same things. If I stripped off the name of the candidate, they agreed with it. People know we need to have tax rates that allow people to spend their money. If you're raising a family, do you know your biggest expense is taxes? It's not your mortgage, it's not your car, it's taxes.
But it was worse back in the 50s, wasn't it?
No. No, because there were so many deductions, nobody ever paid those higher rates. Oh. So it's just changed. But so you asked what we need to do. We need to do those three things, and we need to do them now. We need to get growth back up to 4 to 6% in the United States, and we can only do that through tax and regulatory reform.
And today's date is the target date, huh?
Yeah, today's date is the target date, and if you're doing that, don't get hit by a surprising interest rate rise.
Welcome back to this great edition of the Steve Beaman Show. This is Carol Parisi and Steve, fastest hour in radio. This was a fun show today. Deep, very deep.
And you know what? Our goal is to give you the tools you need to empower your life. And so we give you knowledge, which hopefully you can convert to wisdom and action.
Well, hopefully we do drill it down. It's like, what's in it for our listeners and how could they benefit from it?
And we talk about truth. So we did talk about the G20 meeting that happened in China. That's in the Master Your World. That's important. You need to be aware of it. It may not affect you today, but you should be aware of it because, you know what? It is our world, and we need to know.
You know what I didn't know about the G20 is that they established it in 1999, and actually,
very new.
I thought that was just something that has been forever. What was the reasoning to do it?
After the terrorist attacks of 2001.
But if it was 99, they were talking about doing it, and then they
talked about it because of terrorism around the world. And
so terrorism
and also
was
the tech bubble was there, and so there were a lot of things going on. The thought was, let's pull together the big economies and let's try to have this meeting. It took about 6 years to put it together.
So what is it, a powwow, just for them talking?
It's conferences and people speaking. It's not. It's open. I mean, you can get the transcripts from
anybody. Really, you can get transcripts where? Can we post it on the Steve Beaman Show?
Yeah, I'll see if I can't Google it. I mean,
that would be kind of cool. That'd be cool. All right.
Videos and all that. So we went from there into the spiritual path. This was our third in our series on the spiritual path. Next time we're together, we're going to jump into the emotional path. But the spiritual path, look, folks, we get that it's fraught with conflict. This show's not about man-made religion. We're about truth.
But we focus this week on the spiritual path of having a teachable heart and a
Absolutely.
teachable
And
spirit.
how much nicer can that be? Whether you're walking in a Christian faith or a Jewish faith or an Islamic situation, you can have a teachable heart and learn.
But don't be so open-minded that your brain falls out. That's all I'm
Isn't
going to
that a
say.
truth? I mean, yeah, you don't want to be wishy-washy. At some point, you have convictions.
I'm
that
an
say,
open-minded person.
Yeah, right. Well, I wish I was. Anyway, so
I'll get you.
We went from there down to the bottom of the hour where we talked about our T word of tenacity.
Tenacious, tenacity, and I love it.
And you know what? We will have a blog up on the Steve Beaman Show at the end of this 26-week series on all of the words we've gone through from A to Z.
That would be pretty cool.
It is cool.
That's gonna take some tenacity and purpose.
But we'll do that because it's important for you folks, and we urge you to keep writing us. We love to get the notes at steve@stevebeaman.com and carol@stevebeaman.com. And for those writing through the site, connecting with us there, we'd love to get those too. We're not always as tenacious about getting product out to you. I still owe some people some Path to Prosperity.
It's crazy.
We'll get it done.
You know what, Steve? What was the Master Your Money?
We talked about target date funds, and folks, I could pound the table on this one because if you're sitting in a 401k and you don't know what you're probably in a target date fund. And that means as you get to be 55, 60, 65, you're increasing your exposure to bonds. And if interest rates go up, that's going to get hurt.
So, Steve, what is our challenge for the week?
Okay, we talked about tenacity, and we talked about being tenacious, and we talked about maybe looking at something we don't want to do, but being tenacious enough each and every day to do one thing that we don't want to do.
I've been doing that.
And you can't say get out of bed. I know.
No. It goes deeper than that.
Easy.
And you know what? Do the one thing you don't want to do every day. Do one thing every day you don't want to do.
Let me tell you what they ought to do. Turn off the negative news. Listen to positive shows like this just for 1 week.
I've been doing that.
It really helps.
You know what? I do have a little
It takes me
window.
down.
You know, I cannot just sit there and have the television on with the I can't.
I get you need background noise sometimes, but you watch TV on some of these programs, it just upsets you.
Turn us on. You could get us on YouTube.
Watch us all over the time. Anyway, we do want to thank our producer, Jim Thompson, who puts this together every week. He does a fabulous job for us. We're glad and we're honored to have him. And we want to thank, of course, the Society to Advance Financial Education for making this possible for us to bring on. Also, John Grebe of John Grebe and Associates at 630-653-3510. And our friends at Cherry Bundy. We haven't been as promoting them today as we want to. I'm telling you, I got my kids drinking it. We got us drinking it. Everybody in the world should be drinking this stuff. It really does help.
Tart cherry juice, and the inflammation is going away, man. I feel great.
And we are bringing some new sponsors to you in the next few weeks. We're excited about that. So we have a lot going on. But folks, from our hearts to your hearts, this show is all for you. So Godspeed to you, our friends. We'll see you next time around.
Bye-bye.